It was daytime when Kai Dalong ordered all troops to charge and kill them while they mounted the ladders on the wall. Meanwhile, Blacksmith Zhu fired the crossbows and slings. The gigantic rock was launched into the air and fell on the soldiers, breaking their ladders. Their soldier went down and fell from the ladder as the gigantic stone started crashing on them. While riding his horse, Kai Dalong observed his soldiers' screams as they were struck. He was shocked and terrified, wondering what kind of city defense mechanism that was, when he realized they had slingshots and crossbows, and that he could not take the Toad village with 10,000 ordinary soldiers. Kai Dalong ordered them to retreat. On top of the gate, Liu Bei asked his village master whether they should leave the village and pursue them since they had retreated, to which Cheng Dalei replied that they would not leave. He was showing weakness to bait them. He then added that he was the one in a hurry so they would just hold him off. Kai Dalong was stationed near the village for 10 days but could not fight a real battle with Cheng Dalei, whether pretending to retreat or showing weakness to draw the enemy in. Cheng Dalei just wouldn't come out, and he did not have a siege engine to lay siege to the city. Simply attacking would have been a nightmare. The soldiers were launching a covert attack. Therefore, they had to move quickly to breach a small defense gap and approach the stronghold covertly while being warned not to fire arrows. Unluckily, the Toad bandits were aware of this and cleared their throat loudly enough for the soldier to hear. The twin bandits grinned when he urged them to give them a taste of the golden juice. The soldiers screamed. The ground had a muddy-like texture that would suck in a shovel. The soldiers, too, were trapped and sucked into the mud, while one of them said that they had to manage to get in, change their clothes, and blend in with them. He continued, unaware that a man was standing behind them, that if they managed to invade the city tomorrow and open the gates, that would be a big success for them. Gao Fei, who came to the conclusion that his village master had the ability to predict events far in the future after witnessing the soldier's shocking sneak attack and subsequent tunnel attack. He stated that every 10 steps on a post, every 5 steps a guard. He also thought of a password, and questioned them if they thought that a few little rats like them could have sneaked in. He laid his sword tip on his neck and ordered these gentlemen to come with him. A few moments later, he stood on the top of the gate wall, and Cheng Dalei was asked why he conspired against him when the Lord had treated him well. Kai Dalong added if he still had a sense of honor, then urged him to come out of the village quickly to fight with him and questioned what kind of hero he was if he could only hide in the village. Cheng Dalei replied that their friendship was worth more than 1,000 gold. He didn't want to fight with him, and reminded him of the time they talked by candlelight at night where he said he would travel far away, and he would find a girl for him. He went on to say that they became good friends when they first met, even though they were not really brothers but considered as one, and he did not expect to cross swords with him. Kai Dalong uttered that it was bullshit and he did not care about him. Cheng Dalei questioned why he was trying to avoid this again. He could still remember their gathering in which he said Yang Longting was a person who could do nothing but eat and drink, and that it would be so much better if he became the Lord of Yuzhou. Cheng Dalei suggested he take Yang Longting's head, and he would make him the Lord of Yuzhou, which made Kai Dalong surprised and terrified. Kai Dalong sweated profusely when he thought in his mind, if the king of Yuzhou found out about this, not to mention whether he believed it or not, he would certainly feel uncomfortable, and his future would be ruined. On the other hand, Cheng Dalei himself came forward to say this. He continued thinking that if he forbade the soldiers from spreading, it would look like he was hiding something. Since he wouldn't come out to fight, he would let the soldiers escort the grain brigade at the Qin Niu mountain. He kept thinking he would take some of his men to fight Black Rock City and pursue this issue later on. Eventually, Kai Dalong abandoned the attack on Toad Village, leaving only 3,000 troops stationed along the main grain transportation route. However, the grain transport route was too long and therefore could not be fully secured, and Cheng Dalei's bandits were familiar with the environment, conducting night raids, fires, and traps. He led a group of people to transport. Whatever could be robbed was robbed, and whatever couldn't be robbed was burned. And they never fought head-on. As soon as they encountered a larger force, they immediately fled back to the village. Someone sighed as he questioned when transporting 10 wagons of grain, at least 3 wagons would be lost. It was Cheng Dalei, saying that they should have followed the Toad Village's rules right from the beginning and given him 20% of the grain, as he stood in front of high stacks of grain. Meanwhile, on the Black Rock City side, the siege still continued. Inside the hut of Yuzhou camp, they were reporting to Yang Longting. Kai Dalong reported that Cheng Dalei had now blocked the grain channel. Another soldier chimed in that they had encountered a variety of attacks but had difficulty setting the tune with one beat of a gong. Kai Deking reported a young martial artist with amazing fighting skills, and the military strategist said that they had been too careless with this person, Otherwise, they would have taken down Toad Village before coming there. This left Yang Longting speechless. A voice emerged, saying that it was not too late. It was Yang Longting who commanded them to notify the entire army that they would be leaving camp the next day. He remarked to kill the Toad first, then kill Zusi. The next day, 50,000 troops were sent to Toad Village. The soldiers of Black Rock City were confused because the Yuju army had withdrawn. On the top of the stone wall gate, Lu Heng questioned his adoptive father if they had been successful in driving them away because they had withdrawn their men. City Lord Zhu responded that Yang Longting would not retreat so easily, they would fight the Toad Village. Lu Heng replied asking what they should do next. City Lord Zhu said that if one of two interdependent things falls, the other would be in danger, which means that when the Toad was dead, they were next. He then instructed Lu Heng to take 1,000 light cavalry, prepare bows, arrows, and set out to lure the enemy. He added to show them a call to fight, the more noise, the better. A throng of noisy soldiers on horse galloped outside the Black Rock City, and City Lord Zhu watched them from atop. These soldiers successfully attracted the attention of the Yuju army by enticing it to join them in battle. Yang Longting smiled when they saw the Black Rock City soldiers were out, and that finally they could slaughter some lives. When the Yuju army straightened its rear formation and was ready to attack, with the swiftness of his light cavalry, Lu Heng dashed back to Black Rock City. When the light cavalries quickly returned to the gate and shut it, Yang Longting was rendered speechless. Kai Dalong asked His Majesty what to do now, and dismayed, Yang Longting instructed to further withdraw from the palace. With further withdrawal from the place, Lu Heng grinned when they came out again with 1,000 light horsemen and shot arrows. It was nighttime at the Yuju camp. Yang Longting kept thinking and realized Cheng Dale and Zhu Banchuan had been working together in some way or they wouldn't have cooperated so well. The mountain roads to Toad Village were mostly canyons, which were not suitable for combat. And if he stubbornly attacked the Toad Village now, he was afraid they would be pulled halfway back and forth, which would tire out the troops. He had spent half of his life in the military, and it was the first time he had encountered such vile enemies as Cheng Dale, together with Zhu Banchuan. It felt like he was trapped in a swamp, as if he was being suffocated. He went on thinking he could no longer be guided by any side. He could only bet everything on a single throw, and he must destroy the city as soon as possible. Yang Longting was stuck in a difficult situation between Black Rock City and Kin New Mountain. If he continued to attack Black Rock, he could only attack persistently. If he retreated from the camp to attack Toad Village, he could be easily attacked from the front and back. He finally decided to attack Black Rock City by force, and the battle lasted 2 months. 2 months later, Yang Longting was terribly fatigued, and everyone was nervous. Zhu Banchua's city was almost out of food, and no one knew if they could keep it up. Cheng Dale's side had plenty of stocks. A grain carrier bandit asked his village master if they would keep robbing grain because they wouldn't fit anymore in the granary, and he was afraid the food would go bad with the humid weather. Cheng Dale grinned when he caved in and told everyone to take a few days off and eat some good meals. The mountain bandits of Toad Village had gained weight overall. Meanwhile, it was raining on Kin New Mountain when Cheng Dale was informed that many soldiers from Black Rock City had arrived. Cheng Dale perched on top of the edge, wondering what had happened. There were so many defeated soldiers, and did that mean Zhu Banchuan had driven Yang Longting into defeat? Dao Fei who questioned whether they ought to continue robbing the people, to which Cheng Dale replied that something was wrong because they weren't just soldiers from Yuju City but also from Black Rock City. He instructed them to head back to the village and send someone to keep an eye on them all the time, and that the defeated Yang Longting might take his anger out on them. A stream of defeated soldiers passed by like an ant colony. Soldiers on horseback and on foot moved slowly, soaking wet in the rain. On the other hand, a horse was making its way towards Toad Village and was making frantic calls for their village master. They recognized it was Butler Huang and Silong, commanded to open the gate. Butler Huang alerted his village master that something terrible had happened while Silong and he were both drenched in blood. Terrified, Butler Huang yelled that the rings were coming. The soldiers of Yuju fought at Black Rock City. It was a bitter struggle for 2 months. From the far north, 10,000 sons and daughters of the northern barbarians came south. The Yuju army was crushed in 1 day. The Black Rock City was broken through in half a day. After that, they slaughtered the city for 10 days without stopping, leaving behind a mountain of victims, severed heads hanging from tree branches, and birds swooping around. It was a gloomy day at the Black Rock City. A northern ring man on horseback led a group of captured civilians who had been turned into slaves through a series of rope ties on their hands while walking barefoot. Suddenly, the people behind the slave were startled and scared when an arrow flew straight to his throat. The Northern Ring man shouted furiously at Kaimei while riding his horse, telling him that these people were his slaves and threatening to kill them. Kaimei responded that he had stolen too much and asked if he could take them back, promising to take care of it for him. Kaimei was the son of the king of the Northern Ring tribe. He continued to frighten the slaves behind him by shooting his arrow at them. Kaimei had offended the Northern Ring man, who was riding a horse, and he threatened to fight him if he did not return his slave. A few moments later, some members of the Northern Barbarian began laughing at Fu Delay and questioned how he could possibly be a warrior for the tribe if he did not even dare to kill people. Fu Delay on horseback ignored them and told them to keep up with him while stuttering. He was Kaimei's little brother, Fu Delay. Fu Delay was then told to keep up with him and labeled a coward. In response, he insisted that he was not a coward. He rode his horse, causing a loud thud, passing through where heads hung from tree branches. The Black Rock City was burning and being slaughtered. Fu Delay thought in his mind that they were all killing and robbing. Some envied them that they could not dare to do that and feel happy while he himself could not. This time the battle had just begun, and he wondered how long it would take. He wanted to go home and drink Grandma's milk tea and wondered about Wu Lihen and what she was doing right now. Butler Huang reported to Cheng Dalei that 10,000 people from the rings had infiltrated the city in half a day, and the situation had become chaotic. Amongst 10,000 soldiers, they managed to escape thanks to Zhao's skills, and Cheng Dalei inquired whether Zhu Banchuan was still alive. Butler Huang firmly responded that everyone was already dead because the rings had executed him as soon as they breached into the city. Cheng Dalei inquired about Yang Longting's whereabouts, whether or not he was dead, and Butler Huang responded that he was probably not dead. He had heard on the way that Yang Longting escaped and he might still be alive now. Cheng Dalei added that this old man was very fierce. He had led 50,000 elite troops and questioned how Yang Longting could be so weak in front of the Ring tribes. He couldn't defeat Black Rock City in 2 months, yet the Rings did it in half a day. He wondered if they were heavenly soldiers coming to Earth. Cheng Dalei was left dumbfounded when Butler Huang informed his tribe that they were talking about the Rings. The Toad Bandits were talking about the Ring tribe when they claimed to have been the ones to invade and defeat the Empire in the past, forcing even the Imperial Majesty to abandon the city. Cheng Dalei thought to himself that this Ring tribe appeared to be troublesome and questioned if they were really unbeatable. The next day, Gao Fei, who respectfully asked his village master where to go. Cheng Dalei contemplated possible places they could have gone. The Toad Bandits continued to chatter and expressed fear that if the Rings were dissatisfied with their occupation of Black Rock City and desired to go farther south, they might flee south to avoid the Rings. If the Rings pursued them, they might take the mountain and dominate it. In a room full of bandits with Cheng Dalei seated in front of them, one bandit said that while the young could survive, what about the children and the elderly? Another suggested that they should cross the sea since the Ring tribe could do nothing to stop them. Cheng Dalei was left speechless by their comments. Gao Fei, who inquired of his village master what he had in mind and whether he could tell them. After a brief period of silence, Cheng Dalei asked if it was possible for them to stay put rather than run away. Liu Bei questioned his village master about what he meant by wanting to fight in combat with the Rings that had terrified the bandits. The Toad Bandits were terrified and furious that it would fail completely. Not even 50,000 soldiers could have stopped them. They reasoned that they shouldn't have fought in the ring when they could have fled, and even asked their Toad Master whether they wanted to die altogether. They were ordered to be silent by Cheng Dalei. As he rose up, he reminded them that he was still the village chief and argued that it was too early for them to have treated him disrespectfully. The Toad Bandits were rendered silent. Cheng Dalei clarified that he hadn't said they had to defend themselves or flee. He had just said that they might have done so if they had had their backs to the enemy's Iron Horsemen, in which case 1 to 2,000 out of 5,000 would have been lucky. The village terrain was simple to defend yet difficult to attack, and as long as they held onto the gate, not even tens of thousands of horses and men could have breached it, according to Cheng Dalei, who went on to explain how they would have protected themselves. Second, cavalry would have had a difficult time navigating the highlands, thus weakening the Ring tribe's advantage. Third, their village had countless supplies that would have lasted for a year and a half, but the Ring tribe lacked logistical support, and without food, they would have inevitably scattered. Of course, if they had defended themselves to the very end, they would have had to make a lot of sacrifices, but he believed that given all 3 conditions previously mentioned, it would not have been impossible to defend. Since Cheng Dalei was not someone who issued orders by himself and this decision would have affected the lives of more than 5,000 people, it was only natural to discuss it together. Then, he raised his fist, telling them to raise their hands if they were ready to fight. The Toad Bandits avoided making eye contact and kept silent. Cheng Dalei thought with his mind that no one had dared to fight the rings and questioned whether they were actually so terrifying. Suddenly, a hand was raised. It was Xiao Yu. A few moments later, someone began singing beneath the dark clouds. Kai Mei ordered someone to continue singing and playing since he enjoyed hearing someone play. At the door, it was Fu Delay who then inquired of his brother as to how long they had to stay there. Kai Mei responded that they had been waiting for the tribe to bring back the slaves and supplies, asking whether he had been getting bored, to which Fu Delay replied to his brother that he had been missing Grandma. He had held his shoulder when Kai Mei had asked if he had missed her or his Wu Lihan. Kai Mei explained that Wu Lihan had been the most beautiful horse in the meadow, and only a lion-like man had been worthy of her. He then asked Fu Delay how many people he had killed that time and how many slaves he had acquired. Fu Delay stammered in response. Kai Mei was interrupted by his brother, who referred to him as a silly brother and encouraged Fu Delay to join him in listening to music. A lady had continued to sing and play the bandurria. She had kept singing as she reflected on how she had previously believed the Ring tribe to be full of demonic beings. But up close, she had the impression that these Ring people were simply normal people, or at least that this Kai Mei had not been terrifying and had a nice smile. When Kai Mei had asked Fu Delay if he had understood the lyrics while sitting next to him, Fu Delay had said that he had not and that he had not thought it had sounded good either. The lady had kept singing, and Kai Mei had laughed and told him that when he had been a bit older, he would think it had sounded good. He had then been asked if the lady had been attractive, to which he had said that she had been. Kai Mei had said that he had gotten her for him by force and now he was gifting her to him. He had already asked for him. She had still been a virgin. Fu Delay had hesitantly replied that he had already had Wu Lihan. After calling him by name, Kai Mei had given him a strong shove, causing Fu Delay to fly off the ground and crash on top of the lady playing for them. Fu Delay had looked back toward his brother and glared angrily at him. Kai Mei had risen up and told him that he hadn't murdered anyone or spilled a drop of blood throughout the battle, and he had questioned whether he had been worthy to be his brother. He had continued to say that a man who had not dared to shed blood had not been a warrior of his Northern Ring tribe. Either he took her or killed her, which Fu Delay had been furious and afraid about. Kai Mei had tossed a sword in his direction and threatened to murder him if he hadn't. He had pushed him to become a real man right there. Fu Delay was silent as Kai Mei laughed. Fu Delay contemplated either killing or stealing from her. Fu Delay took up his sword while the woman begged him not to kill her as she could do anything he wanted. He eventually let her go and dropped his sword, which shocked the lady. She asked whether he would be willing to let her leave, and when Fu Delay replied that he was, he instructed her to go through the back door and head south. She could reach her country if she continued traveling south, and nobody could harm her there because it was unsafe here. The lady replied that this place was swarming with his people and that there was no way for a helpless woman like her to escape them, which he then inquired what they should do. She asked if she would be protected by him. He blushed and promised to try the best he could to stop anyone from hurting her. Meanwhile, at the Toad village, where Xiao Yu raised his hand, Cheng Dalei asked him why he wanted to fight and if he had something in mind. Xiao Yu replied that for the good of the country and the people, his death meant nothing if he could save lives. He continued that the Ring tribe was raging everywhere, and they could only sacrifice their lives for justice, adding that he did not fear death. Bandits near Xiao Yu were muttering and laughing sarcastically while criticizing his national justice and calling him an inexperienced boy. Cheng Dalei sighed as he observed Xiao Yu's look, wondering whether Xiao Yu was the only one who wanted to fight in war. While it was simple to declare support for the country and its people, mountain bandits like him could not afford it. He kept thinking that even if he gave the people missiles, they could not win this battle since the people's hearts were not prepared for war. The only way out at the moment seemed to be escape, but Cheng Dalei genuinely did not want to run away. When he questioned everyone if they still thought of him as their village leader, Gao Feihu responded that they were all at his disposal to do anything he wanted. Cheng Dalei stood up, explaining that he was putting their lives in his hands by calling him the village master, but he did not have the authority to send everyone to their death. However, if he could borrow soldiers and had enough confidence to win this battle, he asked if everyone could go into battle with him. Gao Feihu asked who would be willing to help them and from whom they could borrow troops in times like that. In response, Cheng Dalei said that he had made arrangements for the matter and that an update would be available over the next 2 days. A few days later, it rained at the foot of Qin Niu Mountain, and an army of Yuzhu soldiers walked home led by Yang Longting on horseback. Yang Longting was startled when someone shouted to block their way. It turned out to be the Toad bandits. Yang Longting questioned Cheng Dalei about what he had been doing, to which he replied that he had been waiting for him the entire time. Yang Longting asked Cheng Dalei why he had been waiting for him. Cheng Dale replied that the Black Rock City had been occupied and Qin New Mountain was the last gate of the empire. If the mountain were taken over by the Ring tribe, the empire would be defenseless in the north. The Toad village of Qin New Mountain intended to be the front line of this battle, so Cheng Dale added that he hoped the Lord would set aside his old grudges and work with him in keeping peace. Yang Longting inquired hesitantly and perplexedly if Cheng Dale was still sick.